Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyler Thomas, and I am today's host of our Higher Ed Community Builders panel. I am live from Lincoln, Nebraska at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I am joined by some excellent experts today who are going to chat with me. We're going to start with Heather and then have each of them introduce themselves, and then we'll dive right in.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Adams. It is National Transfer Student Week, which is why I have this crazy, awesome pink background and this awesome t-shirt that highlights transfers. And that tells you a little bit about me. I was a transfer student. I was the director of the Transfer Student Center at UCLA, and I'm now Senior Program Manager of Transfer Initiatives at the College Excellence Program, which is part of the Aspen Institute. And I also run a Facebook group called Transfer Nation for transfers and transfer professionals and folks who advocate and celebrate and educate on all things transfer.
I'm Morgan Campbell. I am social media and digital marketing specialist at Indiana University, Bloomington. So I oversee all the official Indiana University and IU Bloomington accounts.
I'm Rachel Putman. I am the Associate Director for Strategic Communications at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. I run our media relations department and our social media, and basically any outbound communications come through my office.
Awesome. And we are gathered here today. We are pre-recording this, so there is, Rachel just got off of a high ed web presentation. Morgan just got done with another presentation for her campus, and Heather is celebrating transfer students every day, but even more this week. So very excited that you could all make time today to chat. Today we are going to talk about when morale is at an all-time low, how to use digital platforms to lift up our community. So we all know that a big component of community is understanding how to build relationships and engage with that. So kind of the first one just to kick us off is, how do you check the temperature of your community? What are some of the indicators when things are, working? I don't want to just focus on the negative, but also how do you know when maybe the community needs a little bit more attention, or where the temperature is just not right, and that morale is at a level that you want to increase and not let it go down any further. Anybody want to jump in on that one first?
I can.
Awesome.
I'm a huge proponent of the Liz Gross School of Social Listening. I learned about social listening several years ago and jumped in with both feet on our campus. We are listening across platforms, and we have some social listening tools, but we also are engaging in the platform to listen to what our campus community members are saying about us in their direct messages and their tags, and then in their indirects. We're really trying to find anyone who is talking about our campus all the time. We are engaged with that conversation all day. We have student workers who are engaging from their accounts with their peers who are engaging from the university accounts. And we're really watching that conversation at all times. And so we have a finger on the pulse of our campus that I think is really important. I don't know if I could point to a specific tweet that made me think, oh no, but by following it all the time, we can see that ebb and flow of conversation where it seems like, hey, some of these campus leaders who are normally a little more positive seem to be struggling, or hey, the tone and tenor of our parody accounts that are normally kind of funny are a little more depressed. So should we reach out? Following that tenor, I think, is really important because you can tell when minor changes are happening before things really erupt. And that's really helped us.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with social listening. Whether it's like the responses you're getting on your post or like directly or also just indirectly. I always have my tweet deck set up and have like multiple columns of just IU, Indiana University, even University of Indiana. And that's not our name, but you can call us that. So any way that we can like somehow grab onto a conversation piece without people directly adding us or having our handle in their post. I like to keep an eye on that, but also just looking at like our post directly, like putting out even just some of our campus beauty photos or just things that normally would get that more positive reaction or even just a little bit more neutral. There has been times where like in certain days or weeks, especially at the beginning of the year, where people, like students are on edge about things like, why haven't you done this yet? Or why are you posting about this when we have XYZ to worry about? So reading those responses have really guided us in like, okay, maybe we shouldn't just act like things are fine because we know that our audience right now isn't where they were a year ago.
Such great points. I would just agree with kind of everything that's been said, and add that it does really depend on who your audience is and what platform, right? So when I was working with students, it was really evident almost immediately because we had a lot of Facebook groups and we had chats. And so students tend to be really straight up about what's going on. And so listening was easy because if you were open to it and if you were on there or had student workers who were kind of always engaged in the process. And I always tried to make an effort, just because of the way that our particular system was set up, I had the freedom to do this, to kind of be myself in that space versus like the center or the school voice. So I was Heather Adams in this space. And so folks were really authentic and would share a lot and sometimes get very, honest about things. And so sometimes with students, it's almost more about having a conversation and shifting morale and working with the tone and what's going on. And it's a little bit more nuanced with professional staff of trying to figure out like, okay, so if they are not responding at all and not engaging at all, what does that mean? And you have to kind of dig a little bit more and listen a little bit more and engage a little bit more to really get a sense of morale and mood with professional staff. And so it kind of depends. And then of course, platforms are different too, right? So if you're on Instagram versus a Facebook group, people are just going to chat and write whatever they want, or Reddit or what have you. Whereas on Instagram, it's a little bit less intense and takes a little bit more digging to see some of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I think the idea of being able to have that pulse, like Rachel and Morgan mentioned with social listening, but then being able to change up your approach based on platform and audience. I can definitely see that, Heather, with if you're dealing with, internal communications versus external, students versus staff. I think oftentimes we try to loop everybody into that the audience group, which is really difficult to then be able to understand that. We just celebrated we had a celebration of service for our faculty and staff yesterday. And so I think that is I haven't participated in that event previous, but it's been a different approach because we're focusing on the people that work there, not just the students who, are part of the community as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helps you understand what are they getting and what do they need? And that's kind of where I think those, the different avenues and the different channels of communication allow us to, what are we doing well? How can we do more of that? Like Morgan mentioned, but also like, where are we starting to see that, people are maybe struggling or it's just not the same? Mm-hmm. And is there something that we should be aware of? Can we address that? So when you think about your community, either when they need something that is really great or morale does seem low, how do you juggle that when it comes to developing content? Or is it finding resources or opportunities? What have you found that's worked well, or seen maybe through connections that didn't work? But what do you feel like the community needs when morale is low? Or how do you gauge that?
Yeah, I think right now, like what a lot of people want, whether it's student, faculty, staff, or just general audience, I mean, everyone just wants to be heard right now. They're all feeling so isolated, and that like anything they post or they email or whatever, that is just kind of going out into the sea of Neverland, and it just never gets found or never gets responded to. And so that's one thing I've been trying to focus on more. I mean, we've always tried to reply to every message that we can, or comment that as long as it makes sense, but now really focusing on that and how long it takes too. Because I've noticed like on the weekend, if like after 2 days, like we're off obviously, but if students don't get responded to, they'll email it or message you again and be like, can you answer my question? Because they're just so just the angst right now is so high, and I mean, it's totally understandable. So trying to figure out ways with our content is how do we figure out what our students need? And that's sometimes just like directly putting it out there. Like I've seen Michigan State do great Instagram stories of just like, how are you feeling? And then other campuses they'll ask that and then like directly respond to these people saying, you know, here are resources so you can feel a little bit better, or that may help you in the future. So I think it's really just letting our audience be heard and like letting them know, like, we know, we feel you, and hopefully here are some things that we can help you with.
Yeah, I think in this term, I feel like community is even more important in that human side of the community. So it's not even about what we're sharing, but it's, you know, what can we provide that individual person. So I found that we still have our big goals we want to hit and our big content we'd like to share, but we spend so much more intentional time, you know, in DMs or in creating, you know, kind of those safe places online that people can ask those questions and get the answers. Not that I'm surprised by this, but I found that people are, especially in this time of like not fully being on campus or being disconnected. I mean, our students are back on campus, but they're not always able to find what they're looking for. So they ask us, and being able to connect them to the right resource, which is, you know, a good and a bad, because like you said, Morgan, it gets a little busy after, you know, even if we reply on the weekends, it still gets a little heavy. But being able to then use what we've learned from those DMs to see, you know, could we be sharing this more broadly? Like, can we get this message out more so I don't mind replying to people individually, but if everybody knew about it, then I don't have to answer every request or response. And it does allow for more flexibility in what we're able to accomplish.
Yeah, and I've noticed too with like some of these messages we've responded to, when we do respond, they're like, oh, like you're actually responding. Like there's someone behind this account, and it's like, yeah, hello, who do you think does it? But sometimes it's kind of a nice feeling to be like, you know, they were actually surprised and like happy.
I mean, that's the best, right? And in fact, the student coordinators of social media, it's so beautiful to see their faces when they're talking about someone responding to their message. I'm sure you've probably both seen this, though. They get so excited that somebody is thrilled that there was a human behind the response, and somebody who gets it, and a student no less, who can share their insight. And so that it's walking that line, though, right, Tyler? With like, I think sometimes when things are really rough, it's also consistency, like also staying in a groove of like, okay, this is the type of things that we post, and this is where these are our weekly things. Like, you got to walk this line, though, of staying consistent and then not ignoring what's really happening, and doing that individualized attention. So it's this kind of, I've found lately, just every single day is a little bit different, and you kind of just go, it's like improv a little bit. Mm-hmm. But staying consistent can also be a really good rule, just because there's so much inconsistency, especially for students right now. And so some of that, just like we're here, we still have hours, we're still open, we're still answering phones, we're still like the kind of more information you can provide to ease some of that uncertainty and continue to be consistent, to also like be that steady thing that's there, does seem to help as well.
Yeah, I think also, you know, maybe merging those two things in one. So having that that consistency. Our chancellor sends out a weekly message to campus with just sort of updates and things to know. And it, you know, she has her undergraduate degree in communication, so she is super great at it off the cuff, doesn't need a lot of help. And when we shut down for COVID, we transitioned to videos, and it just really seemed to help. It was the same message, you know, the same kind of thing she would say, and delivered on the same day, you know, every Friday. But switching to videos really helped bring that human element back to something. So these students were getting emails all the time, but we recognized that they were feeling disconnected. And so just switching that platform over to video, and then sort of organically, we transitioned it back once the semester started. Like, that wasn't something that they really needed from us as much anymore. I think everybody would have loved to see her face, but you know, knowing when the time is right to elevate and humanize And, when you have accomplished that goal and made it through the end of the semester and can move back to emails, I think it's really important to see and be flexible, even with your consistency.
Yeah, I think that it brings up a good point of just that idea of that we always have to balance between institutional and or organizational accounts and then the human, either behind them and or can we elevate a leader or just an individual person to be part of the conversation. Heather, what did you see differently with being able to be Heather in the kind of Facebook groups versus maybe being the transfer office or, being kind of a faceless but important role, but the difference between those two things when it comes to, embracing morale or, that community aspect?
Thank you for asking that. Because I loved that relationship that I was able to develop with students. I think it did two significant things. And I was fortunate about this because I could also see the other side of this. But it created an authenticity and a trust that they knew I understood the experience because they understood who I was, that I was a transfer, I'd lived the experience. They knew kind of a little bit about my life. So therefore it was that person like, oh, she's going to know how to address this topic, or she's going to at least know who to connect me to. And I do think it really developed trust and community. And I honestly don't think if I had been the transfer center and not Heather, I don't think we would have been able to develop such a rich and engaged community. I mean, there's 26,000 students on that site now. It is so active. It is like, good, bad, and the ugly, because it is a group and it is student. We leave it very open. But I truly believe that and sometimes our student staff were themselves and sometimes they were the center, whether they felt comfortable with that or not. I never had other folks. I've always let everybody choose that, but I really loved that relationship that developed in that way. Now, the problem with that then is you're the transfer lady and then you're the person that everyone goes to. And so you get 400 direct messages a day and you can't check them anymore. And so you have to create a structure for yourself where there's an expectation of, I'm not going to answer Facebook messages, and you still need to go through the channels to get the answer to that thing. But I will comment and I am engaged and I will be around. And so I think there's times to be this institution, and those times were generally when we had to remind folks that they are in the same family and community and that they respect one another. But honestly, I did that as myself too, and I think it was more effective when I did that than when I was the center. Now, we also had a center page that sort of drove, the information, the instant updates, things from the university that got a lot of following, but it didn't get a lot of engagement. And I think that was the difference.
Rachel, with your chancellor example, what kind of went into the idea of maybe videos versus writing? Was it just based on opportunity, or was some of the idea of, having a face and name, that kind of information that's available for delivering that consistent message?
Yeah, so she had appeared in videos throughout the semester. Our student workers had interviewed her for some of their publications. But so Arkansas was sort of late to the shutdown. And so when our first move was canceling commencement. Before we had sent everyone home, we had spring break. And so we were able to have a little more time to decide how we were going to handle that. And our chancellor is all about transparency and shared governance. So it was really a large group of leaders who collaborated on how we were going to do that. We didn't just say, okay, go home. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We got together and worked it out ahead of time with communicators in the room. So we were all ready. And when we got the message from our system office that none of the system institutions were going to be able to host commencement, we were just talking and she just was crying. And because she has 4 kids in college and she has been in higher ed her whole career. And so I was like, I really think it would be great if you were crying on video and just, put this out. And we tried a couple times to film it. And that was really the first of that series of just kind of earnest, open videos. And she couldn't get through it. And we were both just kind of crying and sad. And it was like a Friday afternoon, and she said, let's just put a pause on this. I'll make a video and I'll send it to you. And so I saw her out under a tree with her phone propped up in the tree, filming herself. And she delivered the message. And then as she's finishing, our bell tower chimes. And so it just closes out her video with this beautiful song. And it was so perfect. And I was like, y'all, no one's going to believe that she filmed that with her iPhone under a tree. So it happened organically at the start. And then the response was just so great and sincere. And our students really felt validated in their feelings. I think a lot of times when we have to deliver bad news, we have already processed the bad news. And so we're delivering it after the fact. And this was really us delivering bad news with them. And so we were able to continue that, this is not good news. This is bad news. We hate this. We're sad for you. We know this isn't fair. And so they were able to grieve with us in that moment. And so from then on, we did videos for the next several weeks instead of her weekly email, because the response was just so great. So again, listening to the response that you get really organically led us to do that.
Rachel, you just so beautifully articulated exactly what, that's why I try to be me on those platforms. Whether you're doing a live, whether you're doing a video, whether you're just typing in a comment, you just said it so well. Thank you for saying that. Because it validated what and I love that she was open to that. That's really fortunate.
Yeah, she's super authentic. We are very lucky.
Yeah, and I think that video and whatever preferred medium within the community too, I think the key to it also is having that authenticity or transparency, or having that position that whatever you're going to share, that you can have the empathy for the audience. I think that's where it's really difficult, and what we're finding right now, that we have really tough information that we have to share, or updates that continually change based on the latest health recommendations. But we also have all the other life experiences that are going on our campus with our students and with faculty and staff, and all the juggling. And I do find that the community aspect of the morale is really just being honest and being able to, kind of understand where people are and help them get where they need to go, even though it might be a little bit slower than we're all used to, or it might be a little bit different of a path because the semester or the quarter or whatever term looks a little bit different. So in addition to that, have you seen examples, or do you know examples of things that just kind of haven't worked well, or specific things that you try to avoid just because of an experience that, just didn't perform as good as you wanted, or just kind of fell flat? Any things we can help those watching learn from our experiences, or things that we've seen?
I think one main thing that I've noticed that has definitely sometimes works but doesn't always, but the foundation of it all is the toxic positivity, where acting like everything's fine, we're back in class, we have events, it's normal. It's not normal, and people are still feeling isolated. And so addressing that head on has definitely gone better than just acting like everything's fine. And then another thing that we've kind of struggled with this year is, we want to give our students these mental health resources. We want to make sure they know, we have this center on campus that they can go to, they can talk to counselors. Well, the flip side is that they are totally overwhelmed right now. The center itself, they don't have enough counselors because so many people are wanting these services. And so when we put things out there you can visit a counselor, we'll have students come back to us well, I can't get an appointment for 2 months, so how is that going to help me right now? And so that's kind of been a struggle, trying to figure out, okay, they can't get maybe an individual appointment right now. So I went back to one of the people who work over there in the center, asking what can we offer them that's instantaneous, right now, because that's what everyone wants, is some type of instant response or solution, or at least a Band-Aid for right now for certain things. So we worked out where there are these like different workshops that they offer that happen weekly that are free, that students can just hop on. They don't always have to register. It's on Zoom, so if you're on campus or off campus, you can do that. So yeah, that's one thing I've learned is that, you know, we may have all these resources, but also we have to dig in a little deeper, because not only are students overwhelmed, but so are our staff and our faculty and all of our centers around campus.
Rachel, did you have something you wanted to add earlier? I don't know if you had something that you wanted to.
Yeah, I sort of had two things, but now I'm thinking about what Morgan said. And I actually have on my list of things to do sort of after I finished up at 5 is figure out what telemed services we offer. I know we have some, but you know, just like Morgan said, if our counselors are overwhelmed and students are using the services that we've been promoting and saying, take care of yourselves, you've got to take care of yourselves, we're here with you, here's the resource. And you know, the truth is, if they're all using that resource, there's too many of them. They aren't staffed for everyone to be going every week. And so that's one of my to-dos on my list today. And so I think that's so important to recognize and to be thinking ahead of. We just stole a idea from the Tippy College of Business at Iowa. They posted a slider. I'm a big fan of Instagram stickers, interactive stickers on Instagram stories. And it was a slider that was like, how's your mental health? And everyone who put the slider all the way to the bottom, they sent a direct message to. And so one of my student workers is really excited about mental health and mental health awareness. And so I put her on that project, and just seeing the messages come back as she messages people like, hey, you know, are you struggling? And kind of like Heather said, she messaged them. I gave her the choice, because some of my student workers don't want to message people as themselves. They want to say like, this is UAFS and we are here to help. But she said, hey, this is Drika, and I am concerned about your mental health, and I work at UAFS, and is there anything I can do to help you? And, you know, if you don't want a student to help you, how can I connect you? And, you know, people were just really vulnerable and honest and just straight out with her. And that was really beautiful. And so that's all been going on today. And so, you know, some of the students were saying, I work midnight to 6 a.m. And so I just literally don't have time, and I am not awake in the day, and I go to my class at 8, and then the rest of the day is my sleeping time. And so telemed was on my list, because I don't have an option for people who work midnight to 6 a.m., you know? So kind of considering all the variables in our students' lives and engaging with them in that one-on-one way.
Yeah, I think that has been one of the biggest, in my opinion, for myself, for our team, and probably for our campus, and really just industry, is like how much more personalized we really have to get, which does take more energy and more time, but a solution is really great. Like we have similar, like ours is called CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. We have that resource. People are aware of it. But like you're all saying, if we're not listening to what's actually available, like, yes, the service is available, but is it actually available? It's similar to like, if in the dining hall, you say you're going to have something and then it's gone, like you can't keep advertising you have it if you don't have it. Like if it's not on the menu, people get angry. And so, I think what it's helped to really realize is humanize we have things, but then also understand, learn from the community and figure out how to adapt and at least provide new resources. Morgan, that your weekly workshops or the frequent workshops, what a great idea in which people can hopefully jump in or maybe watch a recording too, if they do work a midnight to 6 shift. But I think that's where it's coming to the point too, that we have to have so much stuff, so many different things, because our populations are so varied, that a one size approach to community doesn't work anymore. And not that we didn't know that, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent, and we just have to be more aware of our community is coming to us in so many different angles and in so many different boxes, and we have to be adaptable for that and be the best support we can be if we're going to provide that access.
And Morgan mentioned a really important thing that we haven't talked that much about, but collaboration and partnership and not siloing, which is even more important now because we're not seeing each other, passing by each other in the hallway. Well, we're remote, so we're not, but you know, some folks are, but even if we are, we're not, because we're not in the same kind of more casual, intimate way than we normally are. And so you actually have to go outside, like you mentioned, Morgan, that you outreached to them and figured out a way to make this happen. That's the times I've seen, you were asking Heather about what have we done that's worked, is just communicating with the other departments. And we have a marketing team at UCLA, but in terms of social media, everybody sort of does their own social media. So like the library's over here doing it, and transfer center's over here doing it. So yeah, I see you nodding heads. So others have experience with that, but that caused so much like chaos and lack of unified message and inconsistencies in messages, that and overwhelm of resources, because then everybody was just all of a sudden throwing everything at everybody, which is also not effective. So we learned the hard way of, you know, too many resources, pretending it's all okay is not okay, and being authentic, but simultaneously finding solutions to some of those overwhelms, as you were just talking about, Ted.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just need to take a deep breath and like feel through this. Like it is a lot. And I think it's okay to have that conversation. That's another thing I found personally, is just having these, you know, we are, as employees of these organizations, are also in the similar boats, you know, as the people we're trying to build community with, and either having empathy or at least slowing down and putting ourselves in those shoes and really taking those times for collaboration, because that unified message, but also just that unified approach. Like, how can we be a community on campus and then also move that into the digital space? Morgan, I know you talked about connecting with your office. Was that done? Like, can you talk a little bit about how you know, maybe either started that relationship for people who, you know, aren't comfortable with that, or maybe they're in a unit that does feel a little isolated. So what would you recommend if groups are seeing that their communities need support, but maybe don't have the internal resources to do that?
Yeah, so before all this pandemic stuff happened, we used to meet probably quarterly with a lot of different partners who were in either communications or strictly social media. And we would just meet quarterly and talk about different things that were coming up, like whether it was part of campaigns or it was like a new social update, sharing each other's projects. So we tried to establish that then, and then since then we haven't been able to meet, but we did have those connections, at least with certain partners, like our we have CAPS on campus too, so like with them I'll meet monthly with them, so then at least we can always stay up to date with each other. At first we never met, or it was just like when one of us needed something, but now it's just turned into like, let's meet monthly, we'll save everything for this one meeting and get it done with, and then go from there. And then for those other partners where I may not see them all the time or talk with them all the time, work on projects, sometimes I'll just, if we have a student who will message us or like post a tweet and asking about or complaining or just concerned about something that deals with, say, advising, I'll send that message straight to our Student Central account and say, hey, can you reply to this student, or do you have any suggestions, if you don't want to reply, of how we can solve this problem? And so that's worked, where it's not as much as like adding another email to your inbox, because I know right now that everyone is like totally emailed out, they're zoomed out. I get it. So I just try to do some things in platform, and then if it is more like high priority and we don't hear back, then I'll shoot them an email. But trying different ways to communicate with them. And then also, if I know it's someone, like I said, with our CAPS, I've also connected with our informatics, or we call them UITs, but University Information Technology Systems. So they've had great content on like how to work and learn remotely, and just different things on how to like keep your desk space clean, or how to like have certain apps on your computer now that you're not on campus anymore. So I've set up a monthly meeting with them as well, because I'm like, I know we're going to be talking a lot in the next few months, in the next year probably, so let's just set up a day so we can just kind of unload it all in that hour rather than just like, oh, I gotta ask them about this on this week, or I just emailed them 2 days ago. So that's been like one of the nicest things we've figured out, like how to communicate more effectively, and then just saving time for each other on just doing it on this monthly basis.
I was actually going to ask a question of you all. Have you found a way, you were talking a little bit about staff morale and either digitally, I mean, I've found this strange like cognitive dissonance where people are exhausted and working harder than they've ever worked, and are on social media more, and are on Zoom more, and are on digital platforms more, and are building more community than ever before. And so they're exhausted and tired and wiped out. And then I also am seeing this engagement of people like wanting to engage and get in conversation and sharing articles and going to webinars. And so there's this kind of back and forth of overwhelm and total engagement and immersiveness that I feel like has accelerated because of our strange existence at the moment. Have y'all come up with any solutions? So this is a morale issue. Like, have you found, I know it's about balance and like blending life and all that, but I would love to hear how y'all have done it on your teams and how you're doing it in kind of digital communities with your teams who are working on this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I know so many names and so many like emails and usernames, and I'm like, I don't even know what your face looks like, but I know your username.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for our team, we've done like, just for our small team, like we'll just have like a short happy hour, like the last half hour of your workday, so that it's not like adding extra time to what you're sitting at your computer. We've tried that, and that's helped, because then we just kind of, air our grievances and get everything off our chest, and that's kind of helped like unload and like know like we're all on the same page, and then like a nice refresher, really. But for larger teams, I think our organization is like still trying to figure out like how to get there, because we've been so busy with making sure our students are okay right now.
Yeah, I'm on our staff council, which is like our staff senate, and it's my first time ever being on that organization, and I was elected engagement chair. And I was like, oh, y'all, I'm so exhausted. Like, engagement is all day, all of the time. Like, engagement is my middle name. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be great. I'm like, does anyone want to engage? Like, so that's a great question. Some of the stuff on my list is we created a social media managers Facebook group, which was an idea I had and had kind of been wanting to work through, and kind of got forced through in the way that many things have in COVID. That's really helped some of our larger social media account managers interact, and in a way that, I know our director of student activities, I work with her all the time. But having her in the same group as the person who manages our financial aid social media and our alumni relations social media and our main accounts allows us to engage in that social sphere really instantly. And so, they have an event that's going on this week that maybe didn't make it on my radar for the institutional posts, but is a great thing for our stories, or a great thing, they need a little extra help getting out today. And so having that group there in platform where you can exchange ideas and also graphics, like I am never going to find the graphic that you emailed me 3 months ago for your dinner tonight. Like I'm just not. And I think everyone understands that, and I think everyone feels that. And so having it like, hey, today is our event, could we just blast this from your stories? Or, if you have students who are interested, or you have student workers who you think on their personal accounts might want to share this, having that group has helped us as social media managers. But I'm still working through engaging staff in general. We had a really cute idea to make videos, like little like trailers, I guess, like TV trailers. And we thought it would be so fun. Then we were like, oh no, everyone's too tired. Like, no, nobody's gonna do this. We had one person send it, and it was so cute, but like, just one. So it's just rolling with it, I guess.
Yeah, but I love that you've mixed kind of like casual professional development and kind of learning from each other with engagement and community. So you can kind of go, all right, I can get both. I don't have to necessarily sit in that, 2-hour webinar or go to that, but I can maybe see what my colleagues are doing, share some information. That's awesome, Rachel. But yeah, it's so interesting because there's so much going on. And so I'm just seeing like these two very different reactions that people are having. And I'm in it too, right? I volunteer for everything. I'm trying to go to every webinar, I guess, because it seems like we have more time, but we don't. We're busier than we've ever been. And so so as I'm managing a page now with mostly staff and educators, well, too. And I'm kind of simultaneously shocked at how many tweets and retweets and kind of constant activity there is. And then also a little bit baffled by how folks are wanting, engaging in all these things and then able to sustain it. I just don't think it's going to be sustainable. And you see kind of the in and out of it. So we're going to have to figure that out, y'all.
I think, and I've been reflecting on this a lot this week because I'm struggling with it. Like the normal, like you mentioned a little while ago, Heather, like the passing in the hallway, which would just stop and be a 20-minute. Well, I haven't had that with a few people on my team because I haven't scheduled a meeting to meet with them. Like the normal, like, oh, I'll just swing by and say hi, or, the things that are not scheduled. Like right now, everything just is so, we meet when there's a meeting or everything is so scheduled because we need to get together that it is an interesting time to be connected with other people. Like I feel like we Slack all day and that usually allows us to, kind of go back and forth and have a little bit of like fun. But it's hard to schedule fun. Like, I know that sounds weird, but it's kind of like, back to my kids, like, do I need to schedule a play date? Like to talk to people on my team and just talk. Like
right.
There's no business goal, there's no work outcome, but like, when do I schedule play dates for myself? I guess that's where I'm back to. Like, how do I start scheduling those and have, and how can you do those in a healthy way that, isn't more time on the screen? Unless that works too, but it is a very interesting time to focus on those non-work specific community pieces. Cause I think that's so important as human nature, of those little things that build just based on non-scheduled times to build.
Well, that's when the relationship happens, right? It's like the relationship gets built in those strange moments. Like I've had a post about my dog that I'm supposed to put in the Slack. I'm like, I need to like share my dog in the channel about the dogs. And I'm like, it's been like 3 weeks and I haven't shared this photo, and I'm so stressed about like, oh my God, I haven't shared about my dog. And that should be a fun thing. So I love how you put it of like, I need to schedule a play date like for myself to just have a good time interacting. But it is hard when it's like square existence all day long. So.
Yeah, there was one group, our news team for a while, they would have they have one Zoom room, and from 12 to 1, like anyone could go in there and just go eat lunch and just like, you can talk about work, but more than likely you don't have to talk about work. So it was just like an everyday thing. So it wasn't like, oh gosh, on Tuesdays we have this lunch, or on Thursdays we have this. It was just Monday through Friday, here's the Zoom room. It's open if you like, come whenever during that hour and have your lunch with people. And so that was nice for a while, but then it's also like, well, some days you want to not be on screen, like you said, and that's where you can feel isolated again, but still need to somehow schedule that fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the part of like, the community gets built in between things, not necessarily in the scheduled things. So I think Morgan, you make such a great point of like, let's just leave this room open all the time. And it's not like, oh, we can only meet on Fridays. Like that's like a play date, which is important, but also just being able to have that area where you can just come in and come out and do whatever you'd like to do. And it's less scheduled and organized probably. And just have to get over like eating on camera. I'm still trying to master that. It's a little weird, but trying out things. So one of our kind of final areas or things to just be thinking about is we are coming up on a lot of holidays and celebrations, and the sense of normalcy is there. But what are your thoughts on kind of how do you embrace, National Transfer Student Week or Thanksgiving or anything that is coming up that is going to be just different this year? And how do you approach that with your community?
I think one of our tactics we're doing is really, especially so after Thanksgiving, our students are going back remote until February, which is kind of a long time when you think about it, being home that long back at your parents' house again. So what we want to focus on is really just like showing our students like in their natural environment. Like if they are home, let's have them do a vlog. And so what we're gonna do, we have 10 students right now on our Hoosier Hype team, and that's our like kind of like a digital brand ambassador for us. And each of them are just required to have one vlog this year. And a lot of them are gonna end up between that Thanksgiving and February date. And we just wanna show like, you know, this is what it looks like. This is how these students are doing it. So, you know, maybe take some tips from them. And then also we have told them this before in our vlog series, but especially now, like just be authentic. If there's something you're not happy about with your professor, maybe not drop names, but like say how stressed you are, say how overwhelmed you are, and just be real with it. Because that's what students want to see, is just like, they know it's not okay. They know that we're just not in where we were a year ago. So let's just act like this is, you know, not that this is normal, but that we're being as transparent as possible, because we want them to know like we feel you, we understand you, and let's try and make it from here.
I love that you have that support, Morgan. We do too. Our chancellor is super transparent. You know, she's on social from her personal accounts. So, you know, they're not saying anything that I'm going to bring to her in like a secret folder, like here's the secret things that are going on the internet. But I love that you have the support to be transparent with your student communicators, because that's something that's worked really well for us. Is, you know, we featured a music major who was really struggling with being remote. We're going remote after Thanksgiving too. It's like, you know, some things just don't work. Like I can write my paper at my parents' house if I'm an English major. I can, you know, do my calculations if I'm a math major. But, you know, if I'm in chem lab or if I'm a music major, like I can't sing chorale from my parents' house. I can't mix chemicals and, you know, analyze reactions. And so letting them say that and know that they aren't alone, and know that, I mean, I think you said at the beginning, toxic positivity just isn't working. That's not working for us. That's not helping our students. It might be some places, but not here.
I'll jump in there just because I tend to be very positive about transfer, so it was a good segue. But I agree. I think the toxic, you know, you have to be really careful of not just kind of, you know, just blowing through and blasting through and ignoring what's happening. I'm noticing though for Transfer Student Week, you know, I don't know what the holidays are going to be like or election season is going to be like. But for Transfer Student Week, there definitely has been a celebratory, like it just seems like everyone's just doubling down on transfer because it's kind of such an important issue right now. We've got so many students who are have dependents or aren't on campus, but are needing the resources that they got when they were on campus, and so they're struggling. So I'm noticing that everybody's highlighting student stories, highlighting Transfer Student Week, and continuing to be positive through it, while simultaneously pointing out how it's affecting transfers today, right? And so, you know, kind of pointing out, sharing data and research on how the pandemic is, you know, affecting transfer students, students of color, low socioeconomic, low-income households, and kind of really giving moments and pause to, one, highlight those stories and that reality, and also the resources surrounding that, so that everybody can really understand a little bit more about that student journey and who students are and what they're experiencing at the moment. So it's been this kind of interesting mix. And then I've seen folks do some really creative digital community building things through mental health and this week, and so just kind of, swirling them, combining them, blending the realities. But I definitely have to be careful of the thing because I'm sort of perpetually enthusiastic about this topic. So with staff, I'm seeing and want to engage. It's interesting. The presidents of the colleges, the chancellors in college, they're like on it with this transfer issue, and with every issue and basic needs particularly. And so I've loved seeing them engage. And so I feel like there is definitely an authenticity in leadership that's talking about the real deal of what's happening right now, at least on Twitter. And I think more folks are luckily being like your leadership, where they're just getting real about it, and they're just not trying to pretend that things are anything other than they are.
Awesome. Well, we are really close to the end of our hour together. I know it's flown by. I think we've learned a lot about kind of how each of us are approaching our digital communities, how we're listening to them, how we're supporting them, how we're trying to pivot and try new things and just really be authentic in our approach. Any final words or thoughts before we kind of close out today?
I was going to say that I think it's just such like a unique time for higher ed, where now we have this Generation Z population coming at us, and they're used to just being real and being like more conversational than maybe our audience has been in the past. And I think we really just need to start looking at that more and realizing, we are a brand, but also we are human. And that's what these students want to hear from, is a human. And so it's a great time to transition a little bit your voice and your tone and just kind of like the overall feel of maybe how the things you post, because they're used to that more and they expect that from you. And it's kind of exciting, I think. It's a weird time, but it's exciting.
I think that's really important. I was talking to my college-age son last night, and he's super proficient with a bot, and he had to pay his car insurance over the phone, which is not a bot. It is a whatever. And he was like, I don't know why it doesn't know what I want, because he's used to communicating with a bot. And my husband and I were kind of chatting about it. Like, Gen Z is totally fine with a bot. If I can ask the bot the question and it can give me the answer and I can pay my bill or I can do whatever, they're fine with it. It doesn't have to be a human. When they want a human, they want it to be a human though. They don't want it to be a gray area. And so I think, differentiating our brand from our bot is really important. We are humans behind the brand. They pay us to be humans behind the accounts, and our students expect that from us. And if we try to be too branded, we aren't going to be a robot that can answer all of their questions in 30 seconds. We are human. And so what do we have to offer as humans that's better than that? And that's community.
And I think, Rachel, you bring up a good point, and we are human, and that's what should be reflected in what we're sharing in our content. I mean, there will be things that are bot-ish, that are really, transactional, but not forgetting that our communities also need that human aspect, that human touch, that human approach for what they might be consuming or what they might be building, in groups or on, DMs or those types of pages where it's not just, reviewing a tweet and then doing something. So I love that idea of, brand or bot. That's such an interesting thought as we conclude this. Heather, anything else you'd like to add?
No, Rachel just dropped the mic. That was fantastic. I think that should be the title of this webinar. I would just add that I agree. I think, Gen Z's got this really engaged kind of technique or desire. But I would say it's just that, it's human, right? So whether it's a student who's returning to school, a commuter student, a student parent, a veteran student, a Gen Z student, knowing that there's that one person or that person that they can connect to And that's kind of the key to everything that we talk about, right, in digital community building, is the relationship building. So it works whether it's a youngin or whether it's somebody who's had a different life experience and returning to higher ed after other educational, other life goals, pursuing other life goals. And it's just that human element.
Awesome. Well, thank you three for being awesome humans and for joining me today. We will have a discussion post later in the week on Wednesday. So if everybody wants to join in on that and have a further discussion, and then on Fridays, we will have our builder brunch where you can ask questions, 11 Central, 12 Eastern. Join us there. We'll hopefully be there to have, a smaller group conversation. You can pick our brains. You can have lunch with us, we'll eat on camera and all of that. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope everybody has a great week.